Hey, look who's already there.
There we go. We're in.
Hey, there we go. All right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for, you're already there, and hopefully you're more prepared than I am. But
Well, I've got a few ordinances here in front of me, so.
well, you're a little more knowledgeable. I'm quite certain of that because this is in your wheelhouse, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is.
As a what do you call it? Not a certified building official, but
I'm the
your
chief building official.
chief building officials, CBO.
Yes, that's my certified building official designation, but my job title is chief building official.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, Steve Carmichael, you've been working in this Council Bluffs for how long?
This would be my 9th year.
9 years. And
Previous to that, I was
enough to start out at the top, or did you
Yes,
have?
sir, I did.
What?
Yes, sir, I did.
Is that right? You just started in that position? Did I see something recently that you actually live in Nebraska?
I do. I live in Bellevue. I was the chief building official in Bellevue for 25 years.
Oh my gosh, you can't be that old. 25 years plus 9 makes 34?
Yes.
Well, you're looking good.
Thanks.
Well, so the job's treating you okay. They don't beat you up every single day.
Every day.
Do they? Oh, well, sorry to hear that. But, well, so this particular ordinance we're talking about is it's been around for a while. It's 6180 or 36. Is that what it is?
6136, yes.
Yeah, and I put all this stuff out so that I could have it right here handy. And of course, I've already lost it. Fortunately, they invented a computer, so I can find things again. But the reason I called you and to visit again is we visited about 5 years ago. At the time I had heard about what you had done with through Carla Limmer and the Pottawatomie County Landlords.
Okay.
And you kind of worked together with them, but you wanted to strengthen your ability to have people bring property, into compliance. Talk to me just a little bit about the background, and then where you are today. And what do you think?
When the original ordinance was passed, when I came to the city of Council Bluffs, the city had adopted a general contractor's license for building contractors, which precluded anybody that was doing work or anybody that had a construction company or was doing work had to maintain a contractor's license. There was an exemption in there that said that if you own and reside in a home, then you are not obligated to carry a contractor's license. You can do the work in your own home. If you have a business like a rental business and you own multiple properties that you don't live in, you were required to hire a contractor to do anything in that building that required a building permit.
Okay.
So as we went through that whole process, it was literally impossible for a landlord to do anything in a rental unit legally. And I'm sure that many of them did things without benefit of a permit or a license. So when we went through that process, the logical thing for us to evaluate and ultimately take to the city council was the landlord registration, which allowed them to do certain things in the properties that they owned and rented. And that's how we got to the ordinance.
Yes. Yeah. So it was out of necessity because the city wants to have housing stock be maintained. Of course, homeowners, they tend to have an incentive to maintain their properties, but I don't know about you, but I've seen that some homeowners run out of money as they age, and the elderly have some difficulty keeping things up to date. And sometimes even like maybe a spouse dies, and the first thing you know, you've got a property that the widow's living there. She can hardly keep it maintained. But like in what we're up against now in another bill is that the city of Des Moines decided that, well, if that person were to sell to somebody on a contract, they would want that property to be brought up to code in the middle of that real estate transaction, even for owner occupants. But we're not really talking about that with this ordinance. This ordinance pertains to people who are business people, and specifically to the Landlord's General Contractor's Registration.
Yes, sir.
Right. And so the limitation, I was just curious about the limitation of through $2,000. And then the second thing was you and I spoke the other day about the general liability insurance policy, and that there was a limit. They had to have a minimum of $500,000, and they automatically get renewed on that. And the city of Council Bluffs has to be named as an insured.
Yes, sir.
And so, and that is that working well for you?
Well, we've not had to call a claim on any insurance policy, thank God. But yes, it ensures two things. One, that the landlord is going to attempt to comply with the law in the building construction law, and two, that the tenants are afforded some assurance that the landlord, if he does make an error and causes loss of property, is covered through insurance. We require the same thing for our general contractors and plumbers and mechanical and electrical contractors.
Okay, and then your permitting process, Steve, is that they come and get a permit from like a building and permit department. Is that
Yes, sir.
Under your umbrella?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, and then they pull this permit, they go do the work, as long as it's within the parameters of what they're allowed to do. And then is there an inspector that goes out and verifies that the work was completed satisfactorily?
Yes, sir. And we'll inspect jobs depending on what they are. There may be underground plumbing that has to be inspected before it's concealed with concrete. There may be rough inspections for electrical, plumbing, mechanical, building, and there'll be final inspections, so that we assure that whatever they do, and we hold them to the same standard as we would any contractor. It's installed according to the code. Okay.
Yeah, and so that, now how did you pick that liability limit? Was that a negotiation process to get to minimum of 500,000?
No, sir. That was in the code previously. So prior to my arrival at the City of Council Bluffs, they had a building contractor license, and the 500,000 was in the code at that time for all general contractors.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, so the city maintains its right to basically require that of contractors, and it isn't necessarily tied to any state law.
No, sir.
This is what the city had implemented. And so if you're a general contractor, whether you're a landlord or not, you still have to furnish that. So this was no big surprise at all to landlords that they were going to have to do that. If they want to do their own work, they are becoming a general contractor, and you basically have a licensing process.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And then they pay like a fee to maintain that license every couple of years?
They pay an annual fee. It's a biannual fee, excuse me, every 2 years.
Okay. And do you know approximately how much that is?
I can get that for you, Andrew, and send it to you. I think it's $100.
Okay. Well, and that's not critical, because, you know, every municipality has the right to charge what they want. That gives us a little bit of a reference point.
And another important note, we do not require the landlord to take an exam to do this work.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I did happen to go through this with a fine-tooth comb the other night and looked at the types of repairs. And like, for instance, under electrical, it does not appear they're allowed to put in a sub-panel.
No, sir.
Okay. And I don't even see that they can put in can they put in a new circuit?
They can put a new circuit breaker in. They can't run new wire.
Oh, okay. They can put a new circuit breaker in, but they can't run new wire.
You can replace damaged wire, but they can't run new wire.
Okay. Well, that's, I think, probably important to specify that, because, you know, there's some people that would put it in, and it's behind drywall or something. You really wouldn't know the quality of the work. So you're more full-time licensed professionals, licensed as an electrician specifically, not as a building general contractor.
And an important note on that too, Andrew, is the state of Iowa mandates that in the electrical licensing program, as does the plumbing and mechanical board.
Okay. Well, this is a step in the right direction. The one thing that I think your ordinance allows people to do that I'm not certain that the state level does, that the licensing board does, is with plumbing, installing up to 100-gallon water heater.
I have to research that. I believe that was an exemption in. I'd have to research that, Andrew. My plumbing and mechanical inspector, who was here at the time that we wrote that, happened to sit on the board at that time.
Oh, okay.
And where that came from, I don't know. I relied on him to provide me that information on the exemptions in the state law. But I will research that and get back to you on that.
Okay. Well, and if you know, it's if you are more open and the tradespeople are not complaining, that probably means that that's just fine with them. Because there's a ton of work that needs to be done. That this applies just to single families and 2-family houses.
That is correct, sir. When you get above 2-family, it becomes a commercial property in the building code. And at that point, there's an entirely different regulation that applies to it.
Okay.
So specifically put it in for 1- and 2-family dwellings.
Well, unless you have something else that you think I mean, I'm not going to bother referring to House File 2062 except by that number. We won't dig into how does it compare with this ordinance. That's not the point of today. I just wanted to better understand your ordinance, which seems to be in place and working well for you, and nobody's clamoring to, oh, we ought to change this ordinance. It's an annoyance or something.
Well, one of the things you have to understand about Council Bluffs, and we were kind of an anomaly when the state passed the rental housing regulations. Mm-hmm. Most jurisdictions hired people to inspect rental units. Council Bluffs did a self-certification process that allowed a landlord to just simply bring a piece of paper in and say, my property complies with the housing regulations. And the city wasn't doing many inspections back then. They had one inspector. I think they had two. They started off with 2 and one retired, and they didn't fill that spot. Mm-hmm. As they went through that whole process of going from passive inspection, which the landlord did, to an active inspection where the city did it, we knew we had to offer the landlords some means to help them get over this hump. And this was a perfect thing to do, because most of the landlords that I deal with that were competent in the building part of the office asked us to look at doing that. And as the building official, I have an obligation to those people that are complying with the law to help them continue to comply with the law. And yet we have building regulations that we have to maintain. So that was really the impetus of putting the license in, to allow those landlords to do that. If they fail to do it, there's always the revocation procedures that we have in our building contractor license, that we could revoke that license if they fail to get permits, or if they will not repair non-code compliant construction. We have the right to do that. So yes, it's worked out awfully well for us.
So in your opinion, do you feel that by working with those small business owners who have the term landlord, I sometimes hesitate to use the term because unfortunately, usually you see it published in a paper and it's always the bad guys that are getting the press.
Correct.
But there's an awful lot of them. The ones, 98% of the people we have that join our association, in fact, it's probably closer to 100%, but the bad guys don't join our association. They aren't trying to get educated.
Yes, sir, I understand that.
try to operate like it's the wild, wild west. But I think one thing the reason we want to focus on this at the state level to try to get something implemented is we hear so often about demand for affordable housing, and I don't know that the public sector has an easy answer for that. I think for the private sector's answer is, well, let us do more of our work. Let us buy places, fix them up, build some sweat equity. It's kind of like the, American dream, I want to buy my own place. And so we have some energetic people that are willing to take on some of these projects that would not be able to do it if every single thing had to be hired. If you had to hire licensed contractors to do every single thing.
And that was the complaint, or that was the conversation we were having with those individuals who are those landlords or businessmen, as you state, that aren't causing us the problems. And in working with them, we also put a provision in our rental ordinance that once we issue you a certificate of compliance that your property meets the minimum requirements of the property maintenance code, if we get a complaint or we go back into that house during the 3-year cycle after it has complied and there's damage caused by a tenant, we'll cite the tenant. So many times we have a tenant that's getting evicted or wants to break a lease, and they damage property and say it's the landlord's fault. He's a no good SOB. And it's been my experience in 35 years of doing this, that's not the case most of the time. Most of the time it's a bad tenant. I'm saying that there aren't bad landlords, because there are. We all know that. But a tenant has responsibility once that certificate of compliance is issued. And I have to represent the owner as much as I do the minimum quality of the house that they're in, that the tenant's renting. Mm-hmm. And so if you give me a good landlord that complies, I'm going to protect his investment. And that's what that was for.
Well, yeah. And like so many things in life, it sure works out better if there's a win-win-win situation. A win for the city, win for the landlord, win for the tenant, win for the neighbors. People working together for the common objective of we've got to have good quality housing stock. I just read today that there's the number of single-family rentals is on the increase in this country because more and more people are making a decision to rent a home rather than buy one. In fact, that number was like 43.4 million housing units. And so we need these little eager beavers, the ants, the small guys, as well as the big guys that go out and they'll tackle a project. I had 2 of them on our street. One of them was a vacant house for 6 years and the other one vacant for about a year. And investors took those on as projects to rehab them, but the owner occupants couldn't do it. And so, and the end result was one of them is a kind of a Mission Mediterranean style property, and we drive by it at night now, and it's got beautiful landscaping lights on it. It's completely renovated. The other one is almost an award-winning rehab back to historical standards. The people that bought this were just fanatical about trying to maintain the integrity of the home and the architectural, that it would fit into the architecture of the neighborhood and the period that it was built in. So we try to work with the city hard, and now we're going to try to work with the state to even be a little more open to get, provide opportunity for people. So I sure appreciate you taking your time, and I'll give you opportunity for any closing remarks for any other building officials around the state, or maybe the representatives that are on the subcommittee that are looking at this bill that's kind of similar to what you've done. Any other thoughts?
Well, Andrew, I liked your statement about a win-win-win for everyone. The state has mandated that we do rental housing inspections if we have cities over 15,000 population, have a rental inspection program. Mm-hmm. We want to provide safe, affordable housing for people that rent houses in our city. The landlords, we want them to make money. We want them to have good housing stock. And the city wants to regulate, well, we have to regulate it. We want a program that's safe and successful. And We have found in Council Bluffs in the last 3 years since we've gone to this active inspection program with the implementation of our contractor registration for landlords, that we get far more compliance. We have safer homes, and we're all working together for a common goal. And I think that's the important thing. We're all working together. You're never going to have a 100% success rate, but we have a very high success rate and very minimal complaints from the landlords, and the tenant complaints are going down dramatically. We're holding everybody responsible. Everybody's got an equal part in this thing.
Well, I don't know how to sum it up any better than what you've just done. So I sure thank you for your time. It's a Friday afternoon. I won't keep you any longer. But to those who might get a chance to look at this video, I'm speaking with Steve Carmichael, who's the Chief Building Official with Council Bluffs, Iowa. And if they had further questions, could they contact you personally? If the
Most certainly. You have my email and you have my phone number.
Okay. Yep, and I'll tag that on. Although, let's see, I don't know if I have that handy. Maybe that's why.
Why don't I just give it to you?
It's no man's land here in my desk. Yeah, maybe you could just tell. Oh, let's see, Potawatomi County. That's where you are. It's Potawatomi County. And
we are, sir. Yes.
I have a phone number here, but I think it's for the assessor.
Let me give you my phone number and my email here so you can share it. My phone number is 712-328-4625. And my email address is scarmichael@councilbluffs-ia.gov.
Excellent. All right. Appreciate you sharing that. I don't know if you'll get a single phone call, but if somebody really wants to dig in a little deeper, I really appreciate you being open to another conversation or two. So,
well, it's all for what's best for the citizens of Iowa. And if somebody wants to improve their program, we'll make our books open to them and help them any way we can.
Excellent. All right. Well, all our best to the beautiful city of Council Bluffs. Last time I was there, I thought it was a well-kept secret. It is absolutely beautiful downtown, and we actually had a expo there at the Ameristar Hotel, and it was great. And with that, I'll just say, all right, have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, sir. Thank you for asking me to do this.
Okay, bye.